Welcome back everyone to the Jumpstart into SQL program, and welcome to episode 2, which is an overview of SQL Server Management Studio. Now, the first time you fire up SSMS, it can be a little bit daunting given everything going on screen. However, bear in mind that SSMS is the primary interface used for accessing SQL Server databases, etc. So it needs to be able to cover all users from administrators to developers, etc. So there's quite a bit going on. So the aim of this episode really is to just focus in on the areas of concern that we'll be using for the rest of this program and all the episodes, with a little brief overview on other aspects just for information purposes. When you first fire up SSMS, you'll be greeted with the login screen. So we'll teach you how to log in. It's a very simple process, but there are a few key things that you will need to know. The top ribbon will give you an overview of that, all the icons and options on there. And then we'll look at the main screen, which is where you'll be typing in all your queries and programming code. The Object Explorer next is another important part of SSMS. This is where you'll see the SQL Server instance that you're logging into, which will be the one we installed in episode 1, and all the objects underneath that SQL Server instance. Lastly, we'll show you a couple of helpful tips which will aid you in the upcoming episodes. Right then, let's fire up SSMS. Either hit the little Windows button in the bottom left of your keyboard, or from your desktop, go down to Start and click on that. You scroll down to where it has Microsoft. You see Microsoft SQL Server 2019. What we're actually after is the Microsoft SQL Server tools. So we click on that. Down here you'll see Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. So go ahead, click on that. Now you might find, depending on your PC, SSMS may take a little while to fire up. Once it does, you'll see the login screen. Just to go over this quickly, the server type, if you click on the little drop down here, you'll see the different types that you can access. Database engine is what we installed during episode 1. You've also got analysis services, reporting services, and integration services. Now we'll be covering those in different programs. And of course you've got Azure, which is Microsoft's cloud-based solution. Keep that on Database Engine. And next you have the server name. Now sometimes this can be completely blank. If it is for whatever reason, just simply type in against here where it says username, the letters here, the block of letters up to the backslash. Just type that in and that'll be the server that you installed in episode 1, the actual server instance itself. If we click on the little drop down, it's got an option to browse for more. This isn't a very useful function, to be honest with you. Much quicker and easier to actually just type out the server name that you want to connect to. Authentication is basically the security levels and security types that you can use to log in. To start off with, we've got Windows Authentication, which is the default. This is effectively the login and username, the password that you use to log into your PC or laptop when you first fire it up. The SQL Server Management Studio will use that initially to log in, and as you can see it has the username and password pretty much grayed out there. Your other options for authentication, you have SQL Server Authentication. If we click on that, suddenly you see you can enter a login and a password. So the reason they have those different types is quite often in a working environment you wouldn't want people accessing databases that they shouldn't be allowed to. So if you've got very important databases providing data to front-end applications, you don't want anyone jumping in there and playing around. So only the people who work with those databases and administrate them will normally have a login and password for them. Clicking again, you got various Azure Active Directory authentication. What we're going to do is we're going to keep it on Windows Authentication and simply hit connect. That takes us in, and you can see with the Object Explorer we've now got our SQL Server instance and all the objects that come standard when you first install it. Looking up, we've got the top ribbon area. Now if you look at it, it's pretty much similar to what you'd expect from a Microsoft Office application like Excel or Word. You've got the usual drop down menus, which I tend not to use all that much because most of the commonly used functionality is down here in these little icons. So we tend to use those. As well as that, you've got hotkeys like Control-Shift-S to save all, Control-O to open, etc. So we tend to use those more often than the drop-down menus themselves. You'll notice as well that the third line is grayed out, so we can't have any options down there. So if you hit New Query here on the top, that'll open up a new query window in the query space here, and suddenly you'll see that there's that third line. We've got a whole host of different options in there popping up. The query window itself, that's just open, is pretty much just like a text editor. You'll see at the top here you've got functions like cut, copy, paste, undo, redo, etc. Very similar to working with Microsoft Word. So all you need to do here is simply type out any command and it'll accept whatever you type out. So we'll try this, for example. Simply type that out and hit execute, and you can see there's your results. So it simply is just a simple text editor for typing in SQL code. To get rid of the results window, press and hold Control and press R. Now you can use that to toggle it on and off. Control R to switch that one off. That's all there is about the text window itself. Don't worry too much about all the different options in the third line of the top ribbon here. We'll be working with those in more detail in future episodes. Now to close your query window, simply go on up to the little X on the top right of the tab there. Click on that and it will ask us to save because we did make changes to that query. We don't want to do that, so we'll hit no. As you can see, once again, everything's grayed out. The Object Explorer then, you can see some very similar options in there, similar to the drop downs here, connecting, etc. So you can disconnect or you can connect to more than one instance of SQL Server. So if you're working with multiple instances, you can connect to them and they'll show one underneath each other. Now, as mentioned, SQL Server comes with standard objects, and the Object Explorer functions pretty much like a standard folder structure. So if we click on the minus box here, it collapses everything, open it up, and it opens things up there. So as you can see, there's no databases stored, created at the moment. However, in system databases, you'll notice that there's 4 in there. Now those 4 databases are key to the smooth functioning of this SQL Server instance that we're connected to. So if you delete or change anything within any of these 4 databases, you may find that your SQL Server will fail to function. So best to stay well away from those 4. You might find if you start working for a company and you access a SQL Server, these will probably be blanked out for you. You won't even be able to access them, which is a good thing because we don't want to go playing around with those. Collapse those down. Looking at security quickly and logins, you'll see the login we used is stored there. Now there's a variety of other logins that come standard when you first install SQL Server. As well as that, you've got server roles. Now your login, because you installed the instance of SQL Server here, will be under the sysadmin role, which is effectively God mode and allows you to do anything within the SQL Server instance. The other roles are pretty much standard and cover 99% of everything that you'd want users to be able to do within your SQL Server instance. You can as well create new server roles. These are normally carried out by database administrators, so you don't need to worry about this area too much. Server objects, the key thing to note here is linked servers. Now you can link this server instance to another one, whether that's SQL Server, Oracle database, maybe MySQL, NoSQL, any other server that you have access to, you can link it up. And normally linked servers are there for when you need data brought into your SQL Server from another data source. Linked servers is an extremely powerful tool to do just that. The rest of the areas, replication, polybase, always on high availability and management, those are all handled and used by database administrators, so we don't need to worry about those for now. Integration services catalogs. Now if you do build SSIS packages, then you deploy them to the server, they will appear in there. And then you've got the SQL Server agent where you can set up automated tasks to run those SSIS packages. More on that in future programs. Lastly, we're going to do a couple of tricks just to help us going forward. So head on up to Tools, click on the drop down, and you'll see options at the bottom next to the little cog. Click on that and go down to where it says Keyboard. What you can do is expand that, and under Keyboard you've got Query Shortcuts, so just click on that. And normally I like to use Control and 3, and if you simply type in there, select top 100 staff from. Now that may not make a lot of sense to you at the moment, but we'll be using that functionality going forwards, and you'll see why it's such a great little trick to learn. Once you've done that, if you go down to Text Editor, All Languages, and then click on General, you'll see line numbers in there. I like to have line numbers on my SQL code. I don't know why, it must be a programming thing, but I like to get that ticked. Normally it's unticked. I like to tick that. So once you've done that, simply click OK, and we're ready to go. That's pretty much it for this episode. Very quick overview for you, but focusing on the main areas that you need to know. So join me for the next episode, episode 3, where we start getting into the meat of SQL coding itself. See you then. Have a fantastic day.